Hey everybody, welcome to the Fantasy Sports Help Newsletter Podcast. That's a lot to say in one thing.
Yeah,
The FSH Newsletter Podcast.
this is our first
I'm
episode.
Pete. We've Leland here is our expert, and then we also
Hello.
have Ryan Orndorff on the phone.
And
Hey,
all stats before we start are current as of June 17th. So just keep that in mind. And the newsletter is ranging from the 11th to the 18th. That's the time frame of information we're covering.
Yeah, exactly. So let's talk about prospect call-ups, demotion, trade speculation, other news. What do we got? I know we got Willie Demes.
Yeah, he recently got called up. And also, um, who was it that got put on the DL from? Um,
Christian Arroyo.
yeah, he was kind of like a part-time player, but it does free up more. Echeverria could have kind of eaten into Adamis's time. So, but as far as
Right.
his kind of upside and things like that, to me he profiles as like a 270, 280 hitter. That's kind of, and that's a good floor. So
Yeah, absolutely. And he's showed off his power already. He already has one home run off Chris Sale, nonetheless.
mhm.
So he's shown that he has the ability to hit for power. I'd say we're looking with his tools, power and hit tools. I'd say we're looking at a 20 home run potential season with that 270 average. Out of an 80 scale, he's got a 55 power and a 55 hit tool. So that's usually going to translate into about 20 home runs a season.
But I would say the floor is 10 to 15, and for rest of season, I would say he could be maybe like a 10 home run, 5 steal guy. But if you're hitting 280 in like a middle of the, sorry, middle of the like kind of league offense, they have some people there. I mean, CJ Crone's emerged. His counting stats won't be abysmal; they'll be adequate. So I
Yeah,
don't know. I don't
absolutely.
know if he's somebody that I want to play a shortstop every single day of the week, but as
Exactly.
like a utility bench type option, it's pretty good.
Yeah, he'll definitely be useful.
And running through next person on our list, we got Miguel Sano. It's a good that's a good one there with what's going on with him.
Well, he just got sent down to single A, not even triple A. He got
Yeah, all the way
he,
down.
yeah, which to me, there must be disciplinary conditioning, something involved other than just performance based.
It has to be if it's like a message, right? Like a message based send down.
Well, he didn't even he. It's not like he was getting benched. He just got demoted out of nowhere. So I feel
Right.
like he could have done something to provoke this. He
I
wasn't
mean,
hitting, but he was an all star before.
I got pictures up of him. He is pretty hefty.
Yeah. Well,
He's
he's not Pablo Sandoval where his belt's snapping yet, but give him some time.
and we're talking about it. It's kind of common for pitchers to be like this, or not. Well, not common, but it happens.
Bartolo Colon is
Yeah,
big sexy.
but like you got CC, who's not small either. You
Yeah.
got bigger pitchers,
David Wells
but
is
the
a
hitters
classic
are
classic on.
like big hitters
Yeah.
are rare.
Well, you got like Mo Vaughn.
Yeah.
He's one I could think of, but
The fielders.
I guess if you can DH, you can get away with it.
Yeah, that's the spot for the big guys.
But getting back to Sano, I don't know when he's coming back up. I mean, he could be there for a week. He could be there for 2 weeks. It could be over a month. It's just kind of ambiguous on his timetable.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
definitely
that's
hard.
why he's being dropped around most leagues right now.
And as far as trade speculation, I mean, we'll get into that more as the deadline approaches. But I'm hearing Degrom and Syndergaard, and as a Met fan, that kind of scares the shit out of me. I hope that doesn't happen.
Yeah, the
But
two best players.
I mean, if you're an owner of those players, you're probably hoping it happens because the Mets provide zero run support.
I don't think they will trade them for some reason. I don't know. Maybe I'm just holding on to the fact that they're best players, but you got to
Yeah,
build a team around something, right?
you have to expect
One
the
of them to go.
unexpected sometimes. You don't know, but I mean, it's just rumors anyway.
Who do you miss more?
Probably Degrom because Syndergaard's always injured.
Yeah, it has to be DeGrom. He's more consistent.
Uh, as far as injury news, there's a lot to cover, so let's just
There's a
briefly
lot of them.
run
Go
through
through
them.
it. Yeah,
Yeah, because
go through the hitters list because we got starting up.
let's go through the hitters. I'd say let's just start with the earliest returns, and then we'll get to the more extended stuff. But it looks like Acuna he's already run the bases, and I wouldn't say that he's day to day, but he might need a rehab assignment. So I think it's safe to assume that he's probably going to return next week towards the end of it, maybe. I wouldn't say Monday. I don't want to, put that out there, but it's looking like it could be a week away. Um, Same with Elvis Andrews. I think he's got 2 more rehab starts to do, and then possibly return Monday. Um, Josh Donaldson's a little bit hard to kind of tell because it looked like he was going to return last Friday, and I think he might have had some kind of setback. So
So it's
give him
going
maybe
longer.
1 to 2 weeks. Yeah, I want to. We should be a little bit safer on that. I mean,
Yeah, considering that he's not running at full speed yet, we do want to put a little bit of a buffer time in there.
also
So,
they're not a competitive team, so why rush him back to come and lose games?
Right.
right.
And Solarte's doing fine at third right now. Who, by the way, Solarte is on pace to hit 30 home runs this year, and I never thought that I would say that. To me,
Right.
he like capped out at 15, so maybe Jose Batista left something in the dugout for him.
Yeah, a little bit of sauce.
AJ Pollock, probably the most injury-prone player in sports right now. I mean,
There's always players made of glass in every sport.
they just need to bubble wrap him every time he walks off the field and just let him lie somewhere in the dugout and no one touch him. He's got 1 to 2 weeks, I would say, maybe 3. I mean, whenever you're talking AJ Pollock, you want to overestimate the return time. He's a slow healer. And I mean, the Diamondbacks have been losing a lot, but since Goldschmidt started hitting, they're winning games again. So, I mean, they could potentially rush him back, and I feel like they've done that in the past, and that's part of the reason why he's
But
always
he'll get
hurt.
re-hurt,
Yeah.
yeah.
Byron Buxton is looking like he might return next week, but I would say too, he's another person who's kind of injury prone, and it's a foot injury, and he's a base stealer. So the thing with Buxton is he had a ridiculous second half last year. It's hard to give up on him completely. I mean, I know he's hitting like 150, but the upside's not going away. I mean, his pedigree is, like a 20 home run, 40 steal guy.
What is it? It's just a toe injury? Something
Yeah,
like that.
yeah, it's
so
a toe injury. So obviously, if you're running all the time and that's your kind of selling point as a player,
Well, you kind of just got to rest on that. There's not much you could do.
mm-hmm.
So he's probably just doing limited stuff in
Right.
the minors.
Will Myers, it's looking like he's close to returning. I think you could safely say 1 to 2 weeks, but
Yeah.
he's another player that's been injured a lot, and the Padres are not competitive, so why rush him back to just be probably sellers at the deadline. If you own Brad Hand,
It's speculated next week, though, for him.
have Kirby Yates the stash.
Right.
Just put that out there real quick. Yoenis Cespedes, another guy who just can never stay healthy and should never play on anything more than a 1-year deal. This is
More Met stuff.
well, I mean, there's a lot of injuries on that team.
Yeah, well, I mean, they're
I
not
don't
hitting
even want to
for-
talk
yeah,
about them, but I have to.
Not hitting for a reason, yeah.
Cespedes, it's probably looking like 2 to 3 weeks. I mean, he kind of comes back when he feels like it. He's getting paid. He's not playing for a contract right now, so what's the incentive?
Yeah.
He's probably riding a horse somewhere right now in the parking lot. Jorge Soler.
Yeah.
He's a horse rider?
Yeah,
That's his thing?
Jorge Soler, he had a pretty significant injury. He's looking like 5 to 6 weeks. I wouldn't expect him back till after the All-Star break, and he was borderline rosterable anyway, but his upside is, 30-plus home runs. If he can hit 270, that's great, but I would say the Royals lineup is pretty thin. And Miguel Cabrera's done for the year. I think he tore his bicep.
Yeah, ruptured his bicep.
Ruptured,
Sounds
yeah.
extremely painful.
It looked like almost like a non-contact injury, and those, like, as for DeCruz, the worst ones to get.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah, he wrote a whole book about it.
I can confirm about that Cespedes horse story. I'm looking at these photos.
Oh yeah, does he have a hat on? With
Yeah,
it?
he's got a hat and like a cowboy hat. Yeah.
That's great. Yeah, he could be rehabbing right now.
Yeah.
And let's hope he doesn't fall off the horse. I mean, that's
Oh,
I'm sure
yeah,
that's
yeah.
not in his contract.
Christopher Reeve situation, yeah.
Pitchers, Rich Hill. I'm hoping he comes back as a starter. So let's I mean, Bueller's injured, so that doesn't really help. And
Yeah,
Bueller's
Robert said that he could start as soon as next week against the Cubs. So it's looking like they still want to slot him in as a starter, which is
Mhm.
good news.
Yeah, there's a lot of Dodgers injured right now. Let's just cover all the Dodgers together
Go through it.
while we're at it. Bueller's looking like he's 2 to 3 weeks, maybe less, but he's a young pitcher, and he already was probably going to be on innings limit. So, I think this is almost like a blessing in disguise for
for
them
them. Yeah,
because now they can kind of sit him and help his innings. So I think we want to overestimate a little bit for him because they're probably going to be safe with him. His
Right.
numbers are ridiculous, by the way. Just look them up. Ryu, I mean, he was kind of borderline rosterable anyway, but might as well just mention he's probably looking like he's going to return after All Star break with Kershaw. Kershaw,
All-Star break.
it's a back injury, and he's got a long history of back issues. So this, if you own him, you obviously can't sell him right now because his value is extremely low. But if he returns and he's pitches well, I personally, I would think about selling him. I'm starting to get worried about the injury history and his age combining to just
As well as lowered velocity.
yeah.
Yeah,
Usually
it's
when your
gotta happen.
velocity is down, you're either dealing with an injury or you're kind of coming back from one. Garrett Richards, it's looking like, I mean, another guy who's had a very that's a trend I'm noticing with this is the injury history that all these players already have had. He's looking like 1 to 2 weeks. I mean, Cueto, I think he could be returning next week, but I would say 2 just to be safe, as well as Darvish. And Robbie Ray is looking like 2 to 3 weeks away. Syndergaard, it's very hard to tell anything with that. I mean,
You're getting setbacks.
it's the Mets, so you want to just assume that the training staff has no clue what they're doing, and say 2 to 3 weeks. And I mean, Otani, I don't. If you want to just, I mean, you wrote a whole article on him. You want to explain that situation because I can't. I don't even want to think about it right now. I own him on a couple teams.
Oh, it's so sad. It really is. He's so good for baseball, honestly. And he was pulled out of the game with what they thought was just a blister issue, but it was a little bit more serious than that. Rich Hill's thrown through blisters, so that's not a big deal. But it was tightness in his right elbow.
Mm-hmm.
So we're looking at he already received injections similar to what Tanaka had received earlier in his career to avoid Tommy John surgery, but Tommy John is not off the table.
Mm-hmm.
So according to the manager, they're still looking at that. It's an option. They haven't committed to it. But if he is on the table for Tommy John, of course, that would be season-ending surgery. So it's still a possibility.
And his velocity was down before he got injured too, which is it almost
Right.
lets you know that he was kind of dealing with it internally
Right. And he
without
had
saying
this
anything.
sprain. Yeah, and he had this sprain, a grade 1 sprain coming into the season. So it's not like it's out of nowhere. They knew this coming into the season. That's why he missed a lot of time last year.
Mm-hmm.
So it's still a reoccurring injury.
And as far as Tanaka goes, the pulling both hamstrings while trying to
he's
score
running,
from third. Let's have the DH in both leagues.
It
already,
brings up
please.
that, yeah.
Let's just have the DH. But I don't want to get into that a whole tangent.
Yeah, that's ridiculous.
I also heard with Otani that he might come back strictly as a hitter. So obviously, if you drafted him as a pitcher, that really doesn't help you at all.
Yeah, I've heard that too. That he's gonna hit maybe, but not if he's getting surgery.
Which I mean, that at least he's still in the game and visible to fans and things like that. But if you draft him as a pitcher, you got to eat that, which is unfortunate.
You're so right about him being a fun player, though. Great for the league.
Yeah, well, a lot of people
He
only
is.
watch baseball games because of him now. So
Yeah,
and Trout's
Yeah.
on the team also. I mean, that helps. But
Yeah.
okay, so let's get into the ads, and let's start with the hitters first. I feel like we are talking a little bit too much about the Mets, but it just happened to be like that.
yeah. It's the way it's gonna happen.
Brandon Nimmo is, he's kind of teetering between 50% owned and above, so I think he's still worth mentioning. But in 163 plate appearances, he's hitting 264, 31 runs, which is a lot more than I would have thought with the people behind him. I mean, Asdrubal Cabrera's been hitting well this year, but 9 home runs, 16 RBI, and 7 steals. So he's showing that he can probably be a 2020 guy at his upside.
Right. And he's going to get on base a lot, which gives him more opportunities for steals. He's got an excellent plate discipline. He doesn't swing when it's outside the zone. He's like top 10% in O swings or swings outside of the zone.
Mm-hmm.
So he's going to get the chances to steal, which is great. And now that he's showing power, that makes him a threat across the board.
And he doesn't look like a huge base stealer. He looks more like, he's not fast. He's not extremely athletic and fast, but he's a smart enough base stealer to maybe get more than like his athletic ability would allow. So I wouldn't want to say he's a 20 stolen base guy, but if you can get 10 to 15 in a season, that's rosterable to me.
Definitely.
And he already has 7 in limited games, so.
Yeah, if he keeps up the pace, definitely could look to an easy 10 to 15.
Then let's go to Ryan Healy, who is first base and third base eligible, which is extremely useful.
It's always fun.
Hits in a very stacked lineup. He's only 42% owned, which I kind of thought he'd be over 50%. He has a decent track record. He's hit, I think, 280 in multiple seasons, which he's hitting 257 now. So I would say rest of season, that should be around 270. Uh, he's already got 13 home runs on the year with 31 RBIs. So if he hits another 10 plus the rest of the year, he's almost like a 30 home run guy.
That team's been winning games, right?
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
and
so
that's without Cano, who
well, he's another former Yankee. Yeah, on steroids.
Cano is not coming back anytime soon. Um, but Ryan Healy, I think, should be owned more than 42% of leagues.
And he's shown us before that he can do it. 25 home runs, 271 last year, and that's in Oakland with a bad hitter's park. So definitely got 25 to 30 home run potential over a season.
Well, and the thing about that is if he's hitting 257 now and he's profiles as like a 270 floor hitter, that means for the rest of the season you could maybe see him hitting 280. Just to even that out to get him to his season kind of career numbers. And if he's a 280 hitter with like 15 more home runs and the counting stats that he could possibly get, I mean, I would think he should be 60% owned, not 40.
Yeah, it's gonna go
Yeah.
up.
Absolutely.
Jonathan VR, I mean, I don't know why the guy just can't get an everyday job and just leave him alone. He had a season of like 30 home runs and 60 steals almost. I mean, that's insane. You go from that to being like a bench guy. I'm not a manager. I can't like write the lineups in, but VR has a 270 average, 16 runs, 6 home runs, 21 RBIs, and 9 stolen bases in limited plate appearances. I mean, he still profiles out as a 20 home run, 40 steal guy. Like, if he can just get enough at bats.
Right. Anyone with that kind of potential on the base pass, you can't really bench a 62 steal player.
And the nice thing about that, too, is even if he isn't in the lineup, he's in the National League, he has the ability to come in as a defense replacement or a pinch runner and still, get maybe one chance at a steal. So just keep in mind, if you ever have, you're like in the position where you have two people and one of them, like they're both out of lineup and you have to pick between the two, always kind of go with the guy who could come in as a specialist.
Okay, that kind of option.
Same thing with Leonis Martin as VR, a good mix of power and speed. VR's had multiple seasons of over 20 steals, and he's only 28% owned right now. That's low. He's hitting 257, but I think he can hit over 260, maybe be 270 hitter. 41 runs, 9 home runs, 26 RBIs, and 6 stolen bases in a pretty mediocre Tigers lineup. I know Miguel Cabrera's done, but they still have Candelario. They still have
They still have a
Castellanos.
decent team around them.
It's not like they're the Marlins.
Right.
Yeah, they've been competitive this season. And one thing about Martin's batted ball data that I really like to see is that normally league average for hard hit percentages is about 30. He was a career 27% hard hit percentage. It's up to 38% this season, which is phenomenal. That's a like elite level of hard hit balls. So
that's quite the
that's
boost.
a good sign. Yeah.
So then, the 9 home runs is not a complete fluke. He maybe could
Not
be
at
a
all.
20 home run guy, and he's kind of done that in the past. I mean, I know he was hitting in the Rangers ballpark, which just helps hitting, but he's had some decent seasons for the Rangers, and
Absolutely.
it's not like he has no track record. Yuli Gurriel, I mean, obviously the home runs they're never gonna be that impressive. I don't think he's gonna even really be a 20 home run hitter, but he always hits for average. He's hitting 299 right now, 29 runs, 2 home runs. Obviously that's low, but 28 RBIs and 2 steals. So
He's getting hits, yeah.
if he can get 15 home runs and 5 steals rest of the season in that lineup, hitting in the middle of the order or close to it, the counting stats should be there, and the average should be there. He's only 36% owned, but there's a lot of first basemen that I think, like, if you're a Josh Bell owner right now, I would think about dropping him for Gurriel instead.
Yeah, don't let the fact that he's not a typical power hitting first baseman not enable you to see his value.
He's on the best team in baseball, I'd say, right?
Exactly.
Well, he did have the Hammett bone, I think it's pronounced, injury, which obviously hurts his upside for power rest of the season, and he's going to be recovering from it still. I don't think it's ever going to go away. And that's something I would keep in mind. If it does flare up again, don't be afraid to like drop him right away. I mean, these are ads in probably 12 to 14 team leagues. If you're in a 10 league, these are not people that you're rostering.
Right. This is for deep stuff sometimes.
And you'll see that when we get to the catchers. So John Hicks obviously should be owned, but Tom Murphy is a bit more of a deep league option. But John Hicks, Obviously, Cabrera's done for the year. Hicks could start at first base a lot, and he's only owned in 44% of Yahoo leagues right now. I don't know how that's not over like 50. I would think he would be at 70% right now. Catcher is a wasteland.
I
So,
think I see Yahoo's got him as a pickup this week too.
um, he's hitting 295 right now with 25 runs, 6 home runs, and 23 RBIs in the season. Those are really solid numbers, and that was with him just kind of being an injury replacement fill-in for Cabrera. Now that he knows he's going to play every day, it, you know, to me that would give him like the more confidence and just be more comfortable. Like he knows he's going to play every day, so he doesn't have to worry about that. He can just worry about like hitting. And Tom Murphy's
Yeah,
only
going
owned
to
in
him.
2% of leagues. Any catcher that is on Colorado is just worth monitoring if he can get an everyday, like if he's playing more every day. I mean, I know there's like 3 catcher rotation they're doing right now, but he's just somebody to monitor.
All right, so we should move on to pitchers there.
Okay. Soroka, I mean, obviously the Mets are terrible, but he almost had a no hitter against them. 2 wins so far. He's only had a few starts, but the Braves are a much better team than everyone expected. He's looking at just under K per inning, which, it's not great, but when you look at his ERA, it's 2.57. His whip is a little high. I think it could be lower than that, 1.29 whip, but to me, he is never going to be a huge strikeout guy, but he'll provide a decent amount of win potential on that team, and I think the whip should come down.
And especially since he's a heavy control pitcher, he's always had good control. He had a 5.6 walk rate through his career in the minors. Average is at least about 8%.
Mm-hmm.
And since he's a fastball heavy guy as well, it makes a lot of sense that his whip will drop since he's going to be spotting pitches a lot better and see that walk rate drop.
Yeah, to me, I think he's pitching more to contact than trying to miss people's bats. He doesn't really profile as a huge strikeout per nine person, but the win should be there. Same thing with Joe Lucchesi. I know his K per nine looks good now, but I don't know if he's going to be over a K per inning pitched. And a 3.23 ERA and 1.23 WHIP so far. And I mean, he got injured. Obviously, the starts and sample size limited, but his minor league track record's pretty solid. I think he's returning from the DL. I would add him if he's available. And the Padres, just that pitching. I mean, that park has always been good to pitch in. Caleb Smith, only 38% owned of leagues. I know the Marlins are not going to provide much as far as run support, but 83 strikeouts in 72 innings.
This isn't bad.
And his whip is at 1.19. I think his spin rate is pretty high. His deeper numbers kind of show that this is not fluky. I think that he can maintain the K per nine, and obviously the wins will be limited, but if you're just looking for non-wins, then he's worth adding.
Yeah, the K's alone. I mean, he's been in the top 10 to 15 most of the season in K percentage.
Mm-hmm.
So that's was above people like Noah Syndergaard. If you look at someone with that kind of strikeout potential, and he's got the pitchers to prove that he can continue it, and he definitely has that ability to keep up the K rate.
Same thing with Vince Velasquez too. He's very similar in. Well, I would say the wins have a much better chance to be there because the Phillies lineup is pretty decent, but 5 wins on the year. Yeah, well, anything is. 89 strikeouts in 74 innings. I mean, Velasquez has always been a good K per nine pitcher, but be careful because his ERA is 4.74. He could blow up at any start. I think people saw that a couple starts ago. What happened, and a 1.3 WHIP. He's always going to be high as far as walks per inning pitch, but you have to expect that when you add him. Don't go in like he is more of a streamer to me, but in deeper leagues, I would roster him.
Yeah,
Deeper
he has
leagues.
stretches where he's brilliant.
And also, K per nine, Domingo Herman has a very good one. 63 strikeouts in 53 innings pitched. I think he had 10 strikeouts in his last start. A 5.23 ERA, I think will come down, and the WHIP is at 1.26, which is not terrible. If he can maintain something around 1.2, that'd be great. But he's got 1 win and 5 losses. I think that he's due for more wins with that lineup.
Yeah, he's due for a lot of regression to the mean. I mean, one stat that stood out to me about Herman was he's got the second best swinging strike rate in baseball, behind only Scherzer. So when you look at someone with that kind of stuff, Obviously, the peripheral numbers will back up him having a better ERA in the future than the 5 and change it is right now. His Sierra, which is another ERA predictor, has got him at 3.52. So he's going to have a lot more luck going forward, I believe.
Yeah, I think he's had a lot of bad luck. You don't go 0-5 and just because you're a bad pitcher. There's a lot of other variables involved, especially with an offense that can put up the amount of runs they can.
And he's got a spot open. Montgomery's out with TJ, so
hmm
he'll be out for the season. He's got an open roster spot.
Yeah, I mean, you see, they're like bringing up people like Lasagna right now to make spot starts.
Yeah, what's that guy's name again? How to actually say it?
Yeah,
Las-
Lois Saga, I
Joey
believe.
Saga.
so
Let's go with lasagna.
quickly, Mike Montgomery, he has 2 starts next week. Darvish is probably not coming back for another 2. So
The Cubs hate him, the fans, right?
I don't know.
Or he's worried about it for some reason.
Darvish is tipping pitches somewhere in his simulated game. He's tipping pitches. Closer situation right now. I mean, it's always a shit show. So we'll get to it real briefly, but I don't want to spend too much time on it just because it's changing all the time. Soria, I mean,
Easiest
Nate
spot to
Jones-
lose your job.
Nate Jones and him were just taking turns all year being terrible. Now it's Soria's turn. Nate Jones got injured. He's on the DL. Soria, I mean, he's decent. He's always kind of been pretty reliable. On the Royals, he was okay. He's over 50% owned, so I don't really need to spend too much time on him if he's available at him. Same thing with Barraclaw, and same thing with Blake Parker. These are people that I think should be rostered. Barraclaw's numbers are ridiculous. He's got 33 strikeouts in 31 innings, a 1.15 ERA, a .8 WHIP. I mean, he's had always a very strong K per 9. So
Yeah.
the only thing I worry
What's
about with Barraclaw is if they decide to trade him at some point. I don't know what his contract situation is like exactly, but the Marlins, I mean, and Derek Jeter is just giving away people.
To teams he likes, too.
Yeah, Stanton for a bag of Oreos and a pat on the back or some shit. I mean,
Yeah. It probably was a good bag of Oreos, though.
Ryan Tepera looks like the closer to own, even though Clippard came in yesterday for the save. I think that was more because Tepera just needed rest. 39 strikeouts in 33 innings, 2.67 ERA, a 1.22 WHIP. Those are pretty solid numbers for what is looking like a pretty long-term option. I don't know what's going on with the Suna right now. I mean, he could get an 80-game suspension. He can get 50, he can get 30. They haven't even really met in court yet. I think they keep delaying it, so Tepera has to be owned right now. Seranthony Dominguez and Hector Neris, it's a little confusing situation. I forget the manager's name. Gabe Kapler there is a weirdo. He's just doing whatever he wants, and there's really no... I can't predict what this guy's going to do on a day-to-day basis, so I need to just kind of mention everyone involved. And if I had to own one, it's looking like Dominguez is just the better pitcher right now, but Neris obviously has the track record. Tampa Bay, if you want to get into that, I can't.
It's hard to know where to start. My goodness.
Sergio Romo.
You got Romo, you got an opener, you have a guy throwing 100 who's not the closer. It's closer by committee right now.
Yeah, it's just
Alvarado and
I want to tell people to add one of them, but I mean, Sergio Romo could start tomorrow.
Exactly. Not start.
I don't know what the fuck is going on over there. And then just as far as like some brief handcuffs or just people to think about, Felipe Vasquez or whatever, Rivero, I forget what name he's going with right now. Kyle Crick looks like the handcuff to own. Edgar Santana's been shit in the bed lately. Dan Winkler and AJ Mentor, just keep in mind, is a Vizcaíno owner. And I think just briefly, maybe we'll talk about
deep league?
just some stat specialists. If you're looking for home runs, from Reyes looks like, I mean, obviously that lineup's not going to give much as far as counting stats, but it's not a complete wasteland. So, it's not CJ Cron, Hunter Renfroe, Matt Davidson, Justin Bohr, Trey Mancini. These are some people that I think are due for a little bit more home runs. CJ Cron already has a lot on the year, but I don't think that's going away. And as far as steals, Delano DeShield should be owned. He's under 50% in a lot of leagues, but he has the upside to steal 20 to 30 the rest of the season. Jose Peraza is eligible, I think, at second, third, and outfield in most leagues, so he's a good person to have as a kind of like a super utility bench option. He could get maybe 15 the rest of the season. Malik Smith, he's actually been hitting for average for longer than I expected this year. He's looking like he's got a floor of like 270. You know.
Right. And remember too, in the minor league numbers, he had a season between two levels in 2014 where he stole 88 bases
Oh, jeez.
between high A and low A. So he's got the speed potential. He's got the wheels, obviously. As long as they keep sending him, then he'll
Well,
get some steals.
that's the issue to me though. It doesn't seem like Tampa likes to run a lot, and that's kind of hurting his upside as far as steals go. Because as you can have the speed, all the speed in the world, but if you're getting,
Not calling him.
yeah, exactly. If you're getting the signs to not run, then you can only do so much.
Right. He's got 12 on the season, so you can still see a moderate success on the base paths, even if they don't send him too much. He just doesn't get caught too often, so he'll still run a little bit. I'd say at least around 20 for the season in total. So at least 10 more, I'd say, on the rest of the season.
Yeah, that I mean, if he's like a 260 hitter with 15 steals rest of the season, that's useful as a bench option.
Definitely.
And then Travis Jankowski, uh, the outfield situation in there is a little, uh, mudded up. I mean, you got Frenchie Cordero still possible option, uh,
Yeah.
Perella, Renfro. So Jankowski could easily like not even start for a couple days, but he does have so much upside. He stole 30 bases before in limited games. On 131 games, he stole 30 bases before in a season. So he'll never hit for average, but if you just need steals, he's a good option. And I mean, as far as like strikeouts go, Kyle Gibson, Zach Wheeler, Chad Kuhl, they're looking at about like keeper guys. These are pretty deep, but and just a few like real deep league options. Just to quickly mention, like I said, Dan Winkler, if you are trying to speculate on stashing, and Kirby Yates also, Brand could be traded. That's just somebody you want to just kind of keep in mind.
Mhm.
And you want to talk about maybe some prospects, just to mention some people that we're looking at, just to keep an eye
Adames did
on.
get called up, so obviously he's not on the list anymore. But this is gonna probably come more into effect when the trade deadline is approaching and rosters expand. I think obviously the closest people to getting called up are Senzel and Mejia was already called up for just a couple games, but if they ever have an injury, obviously he's next in line. Willie Calhoun, I'm kind of surprised he's already not been called
Even
up.
in the league now,
Yeah,
there's a lot of players like that always on this list that annoys you.
well,
Yeah, like
you can only do
like
so
Leland
much.
said, you're going to see that a lot more as you get closer to the roster expansion. We're going to see a big burst of that, so that's something to look forward to.
That is true.
This is more of something that we'll expand upon when the time kind of is needed and approaches for it. But obviously, Vlad Guerrero Jr. is injured. I just want to bring that up because, everyone's hoping that he gets called up. I don't think it's happening this year. If you're stashing him, I think it's time to just let it go.
Yeah, they said he was about to get called up to AAA right before his injury, so it's not
Yeah,
likely.
It's going to take a while.
yeah. I mean, just because we all want it to happen doesn't mean it's going to. And Eloy Jimenez, if he could get called up in the second half, is pretty interesting. To me, he profiles as like a 30 home run, 15 steal Domingo Santana type of player when Domingo Santana was good. That's the floor. So, or not floor, that's the upside. But yeah, that's pretty much as far as prospects. I think.
All right, so I think that's kind of where we'll stop the podcast for this week. You can find us on Twitter. We're FSH Sports on Twitter.
Yeah,
Ryan, what's your handle on Twitter?
On Ball on Twitter.
Yeah, and so that's kind of where you can find us if you ever want to contact us or just kind of see what we're doing. We do a lot of like live tweeting.
yeah. As far as lineup decisions, if people aren't playing every day, injury news, just make sure to be following us on Twitter because that is always up to date. As quickly as we get the information, we try to get it out to you.
And of course, our newsletter. You can always subscribe by going to our website at fantasysportshelp.com.
Yep.
So have a good one, guys.